right, now we're going to write the program that is the login program, essentially, that allows people to enter in their username and password, and we check to see if it's correct. So this is kind of, if we go back to our drawing, this is now this second program we're running over here, where again they enter a username and password, and we're going to check to see if it's correct by opening up an input stream that's coming from the file that we've stored all of the correct usernames and passwords in. We're going to read in all of these usernames and passwords, read in a line at a time into our program, and then we're going to kind of break that line down into two pieces, the username and the password, and see, does this match what was entered? And eventually, if we find a line that matches, we'll say you're logged in, and if we never find a line that matches, we'll say, sorry, that was incorrect in some way. So let's get to the code and kind of look at an overview, and I'm going to have you try to fill in some blanks. So this top part up here is just the part that says enter your username and password and stores those in some variables, entered username and entered password. These next couple lines are the lines that open the input stream and then open the scanner, or use the scanner to read from that input stream, set up this scanner to read from the input stream. And you'll, well, let's keep going and then we'll come back to that. Okay, then we actually need to, once we've got this scanner set up that can read a line at a time or read parts of the file, we're going to go ahead and do that. We're going to read in the line, each line of the file one by one. So if we look at accounts.txt, first we'll read in this line. Then if that's not correct, we'll read in the next line, and so on and so forth. And so, whoops, let me go back to, oh, we don't need to switch, there we go. So what this is doing is it's setting up a Boolean variable called correct password that we're setting to false, which means starting out we did not have, the person did not enter a correct password, and then we're going to loop and we're going to look through line by line. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to call this, first we're going to call this check to see, does the file have another line? So that's our condition for running our loop. We want to keep going as long as there are lines in our actual file. This says, the scanner, check to see if that file has another line. And if it does have another line, then we're going to do something. We're going to read in the line into a variable that I call line. Okay, you're going to fill in this blank, and then we're going to have to add some code here in a minute that actually checks to see if that line does contain the correct password or not. And then at the very bottom, we're going to check to see, if the correct password is still set to false, we're going to say, sorry, it's invalid. If it's set to true, then we're going to say you're logged in. So that's the overview. So now I want you to see if you can fill in these blanks once again. So what do you think goes here? As we're opening our actual input stream to the file, what do we need to put as an argument to that? Then as we're setting up our scanner to read from that input stream, what do we need to do for an argument to that? And then what do we need to do right here? What method do you need to write here to actually have that scanner now actually read a line of text from the file? So pause the video, see if you can figure out what those three blanks are, and then I'll go through the answer. Okay, so this first one, hopefully you've got this because it's the same idea as the previous program we wrote. This is the one where you just say accounts.txt or whatever the name of your file is, because that's saying we're setting up this stream to read from that particular file. Okay, and the next one is scanner, and this is just like scanners we've used before for reading from the keyboard, right? But in that case, we put right here an argument system.in, and you've never had to think about what that means before, but system.in represents the standard way of getting input into your computer, which is usually a keyboard. So system.in by default means set up a scanner to read from the keyboard. If we want to read from another type of input stream other than the keyboard, namely this particular file stream up here, okay, we just put that particular name. I called it account file stream, so I'm going to go ahead and write that there. So whatever you put here for the name of your stream to read from your file, that's what you give as an argument to the scanner that's actually now going to do the reading from that stream. Okay? So now what do we need to do here? We want to read in line by line. Well, as we said, this already checks to see, does this password, I called it, yeah, password file scanner, does it have another line? And if it does, we're going to run some code inside this loop. And so what we want to do here is we want to say password file scanner. And it's just like you've done scanners before. What do you want to do if you want to read in the next line from the keyboard? You say next line. So we're going to do the exact same thing and say next line, except this is reading the next line from the file rather than from the keyboard. Okay, and just like the scanner reviews from the keyboard, you can do next int, next things like that. Okay, and that works fairly well. I think most of the time it's simplest when you're reading from a file just to read in an entire line, and then you can get that line that's read in and kind of break it down into pieces, whatever the different pieces are in that line, and use those. And that's what we're going to do next. So hopefully that got you to the point where you understand what those three things are. Now I want you to think about, what do we need to do? Or actually, before I do that, here, I'm going to go ahead and stop the video for a second, and then I'll ask you another question about this.